Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be covering the first 4 of 8 total core moves that you'll be using to play City of Mists. These are the actions that you'll take that will require a skill check like we discussed in the previous video. So normally in a tabletop RPG, a lot of the things that you do are done simply by having a dialogue between the players or between the players and, in this case, the Master of Ceremonies, which is what they call the GM in City of Mists. So things that don't require any special actions or skills or anything on the part of your character, like maybe you're just going to walk through a door or you want to say hello to someone, you can accomplish all that without having to do any of these skill checks. However, if you want to do something like find information or fight someone, then that calls on you to make skill checks and use these core moves. Now, these core moves themselves, since there are only 8 of them, are very broad and can apply to a multitude of different actions, but they all have a general theme and a time when you would use them. So starting with the first one, Investigate, you'll see that it is the move that covers any sort of information gathering. So when you're trying to find answers to questions or garner more information than you already have, you would use the Investigate core move. Some of the actions that might call for an Investigate core move would be searching using your senses, asking questions in a conversation, inspecting an object or a scene, looking up or deciphering information, making calls to contacts, or evaluating a person or situation. And some of the example actions would be reading an ancient manuscript to find the location of a lost temple, evaluating your surroundings to figure out where your target is hiding, looking into the past to discover the identity of a killer, or flirting with a news reporter to get a lead on a corrupt media magnate. Alright, the next core move is going to be Convince. So this sounds like it could be similar to Investigate, but in this case, Convince is when you're using your abilities to talk, threaten, seduce, or maybe inspire people to do something that they wouldn't normally do. So Convince doesn't really apply to information, because if you're trying to find information, you would use Investigate, or maybe if you're trying to find information through deception, you would use a different move called Sneaking Around. In this case, convincing someone, specifically if you're trying to get information out of them, could be by threatening them or seducing them or doing anything that gets them to act against their own will. You're using something against them. If you're just trying to yell at someone and say, hey, tell me the answer, that's Investigate. Or if you're trying to lie and deceive someone, that's going to be Sneaking Around. But any of these other things could be the Convince move. So some of the actions you might take would be bribe an official, close a deal, flirt to get what you want, threaten with violence or a promise of future suffering, or blackmail someone. And some of the example scenarios here would be using your appearance to scare away some hooligans, charming a high-ranking official into signing some papers, or rallying abductive high school students to help them break out of captivity. These are all the things you would do with the Convince move. Number 3 here is Face Danger. And this is the move you're going to use anytime you're going to be affected by some kind of negative status, or you are being affected by a negative status, to see whether or not you are able to avoid it, mitigate it, or how well you stand up to it. So some of the examples here for actions would be you would use Face Danger when you take a hit, when you're trying to dodge a hit, block a hit, withstand harsh conditions, like maybe cold weather or intense heat, project a protective barrier, fend off enemies, endure the effects of a toxin or disease, or overcome fear. Some of the example scenarios would be forming a barrier to block an explosion, using your willpower to resist a poltergeist trying to possess you, dodging the slashing swords of a ninja assassin, or mustering all your resolve in order to overcome your own rage and maintain control of yourself. And last up in this video, we have Hit with All You've Got. So hit with all you've got is not the same. It's not the action for just fighting. Hit with all you've got is, you've got to think of it as the unstoppable force meeting the unmovable object. Where this is just all out. You have a clear shot to the person that you're attacking, and you're both out in the open, just kind of like brawling, trying to hit each other and do crazy kind of superhero action movie stuff. The example I like to use is kind of like the Hulk versus Thor. The Hulk versus Thor, they don't really stand close together and engage in kung fu, because that's a totally different move that you would use called go toe to toe. But it's a lot of like, I just run up and I hit you with a hammer. I run up and I, Hulk smash. Just very brutal kind of exaggerated all-in punches and things like that. So some of the actions you would use for hit with all you've got would be throw a punch at someone, throw a car at someone, fire at someone, use a supernatural ability on someone at full power, spray fire into an area, etc. And some of the example scenarios here would be throwing a car at a surveillance drone, focusing your power on an armored door, block a swarm of hypnotized commuters by firing a hail of adhesive slugs at them. So just stuff where you're not trying to fight with someone who is in a covered position. You're not trying to do, martial arts hand-to-hand combat. It's very just, there's nothing between me and you, and I'm going to hit you with everything I've got. And that is the last of the core moves we're going to talk about in this video. In the next video, we'll follow up with the remaining 4 core moves.